Hey everybody, it's BATJAC J.W. and as you can see, we've got a beautiful table full of some stuff, 1911s in general, and I got my buddy Dan here, and you guys remember the, if you haven't seen the Johnny Ringo's gravesite video I shot, that was for October. That was pretty cool stuff, and actually you took me out there, and really nice narration on that because we got a lot of cool comments on your part explaining that the awesomeness about being out there, the history of it. So.
I love the fact that Arizona is just rich in history. I mean, from the 1800s forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of history, I have a table full of history, really. Kind of neat. I brought out a couple 1911s, and we actually have a real authentic World War II 1911 right here, A1. When the World War II, they start designating them as the A1, and they went through some changes. And I actually have an authentic as well, a 1918 Colt right here. That's pretty much all no finish left on it, but it's still mechanically sound, and it still shoots after all these years later. You guys actually have videos on this gun shooting it at the range, so that's pretty neat. And then of course the anniversary Colt. This is a introduction that they did. It's a World War I replica, so it's actually a replica of that one, and who better to do it than the old horse themselves, Colt there. Now of course we have some boxes and stuff, and a great book over there by Patrick Sweeney and whatnot. And if you've been keeping up with the channel, the recent acquisition of the Inland 1911. This is a copy of the World War II baby right there. It's pretty neat. And my buddy Dan here actually is in the service and shot a 1911 in the service. And interesting enough, you said you were kind of there when you saw the transition.
Right. I was in the military late 70s, early 80s. When they were looking for new pistols, you know, and we're doing a lot of testing. A lot of guys shot different firearms at that time, so you're seeing a lot of the Berettas come out and people shooting them. But one thing you can always do in the military, I mean, you're away from home a lot, and people with common interests can always be found at the gun range. So
that's neat. And I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that I read in the book there that they actually did not, during World War II, that was the last real production of 1911s for the service. So a lot of the guns that people like you that saw in the service were actually still from the World War II era.
Right.
And is this kind of something you recognize?
Oh, certainly.
I mean, that probably would have been something very similar you saw in the service there.
I never used, in the military, I never used a 1911 to a great extent, but you know, when you are trained on weapons, you usually get to shoot a 1911. And it usually didn't matter which branch of the service you were in.
Right.
Being both from the Army and the Navy, I did happen to shoot a few of them.
And these are really neat to me. I think that having the 1911s with the United States property stamps on them and everything, and having the war guns in general, if you're a 1911 guy, I think this is ultimately really a crown jewel to have in a collection, because I think nothing says the pistol's history than its history itself. Right?
Absolutely.
Here, having the real thing, and if it could talk, that would be amazing to listen to its stories. And I remember, you know, when I was looking for these things, I wanted to make sure that it was worn. It had, you know, wear marks on it, because that indicated it was there. It did something. You didn't, you know, some of these collectors, you know, I mean, I understand it to an extent, but you know, I didn't want one that was all brand new, pristine in a box, and it's like, you know, if it ever could tell you stories, it's like, hey, you know, what was it like back then? You know, it's like, oh well, I spent my life in a box.
I'm a firm believer that if you have guns, you need to take them out and roll in the dirt with them.
Yeah.
Make a little love. I mean, become friends.
I actually do have videos of, again, even a close-up video of taking this thing out to the range and shooting it. I don't shoot a whole lot, but I do take it out and shoot it. It is something that I celebrate and shoot a lot, from time to time. Different celebration. I think we brought it out a couple times on like March 29th. If you guys don't know what that date means, March 29th, come on, 1911, March 29th was when the United States military adopted the pistol, and I've done a few videos on that date and had them published out on March 29th and everything. So the recent buy, of course, talking about the Inland, which is a copy of that one, I must say the Inland is a pretty close copy. They've done the roll marks, they've done some of the stampings.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it replicates this one quite a bit, but there are some things that originally, if you guys have been following the channel, what I did not like, which was I originally saw these and they were this nice beautiful green finish that this one here has, and that seems to be kind of a characteristics of a lot of the World War II firearms, like the M1 Garand, the 30 carbine, and numerous 1911 45s that I saw from that time. They seem to have a greenish kind of tinge to them. I'm not sure. According to what I read in the books and stuff, it was due to contamination of the parkerizing. That's what did it. Some people have told me, well, it's because of the cosmoline. In fact, that's what Inland told me when I talked to them and said, why did you change the finish on your gun to this awful black standard finish that really now doesn't separate your firearm from anything else on the market that costs a little less. So I will say these Inlands are a little pricey, running around, I think it's $779 MSRP for these things. So I myself traded away 2 guns just to obtain it. I was very lucky the shop knocked down the price for me and did not charge me that MSRP price to get this thing. But I went ahead and actually spray painted mine.
That's what you said.
Yeah, to get this kind of off gray, kind of greenish look, I went ahead and spray painted it.
You did a good job. It looks good.
Oh, well, thank you. I know a lot of people were probably like,
what are you doing?
yeah, why would you even do that? Well, it's because I was really disappointed with it. I'll tell you the truth. Inland really let me down on that. Did not understand why they did that. When I called them and stuff, they wanted to switch it out. They were like, hey, well, we can switch it out. We get a lighter colored parkerizing, but they, I must say, I mean, they weren't terrible to me, but they weren't the best customer service, I could say. I think it's mainly because they really did not have the capabilities anymore to reproduce what they originally had. The original colors that they were getting from these, and that was similar to this color right here. And actually there was a really good comment that got left on this video that I did where it said, why Inland, why would you advertise something that we love and then go ahead and change it and then produce something that's totally different? And I mean, that's the case with a lot of things, just not just firearms in general, but yeah. And this baby right here, this World War I replica, I remember looking for that for a long time, and it's actually on the front cover of that book as this exact same gun. It's kind of neat because there's a limited run of them, from what I understand, and they really, I have an unboxing video and everything of this thing. You can check it out on the channel, but it's kind of neat because they reproduced the old cardboard box for it and the manual and put it in this beautiful blue.
Everything.
Yeah, they really went the extra mile, and I must say they also do have a World War II replica that they've done, but I have not been able to run across one that was a fairly cheap price, because it starts to get to that point where it's like, well, if you're going to spend the money, you're almost spending what it costs to get the real thing.
Right.
And that's the thing.
When you're spending close to the same money, why not go for the real thing instead of the replica?
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
It's kind of like when we do a lot of cowboy reenactment stuff, and
Right.
we use Cimarrons and Ubertis and stuff instead of the actual Colts.
Yep.
Because they cost half as much and they work and they're good.
Well, if you've got a Colt that cost you a few $1,000s, you're not really anxious to go out and roll in the dirt with it.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's interesting to see that the changes. Like if you look at this old warhorse right here, the changes that they've done. One being the sights. They actually opened up the sights a little bit more on the A1 rather than this really horrible U-notch sight on that rear. And then of course the beaver tail, you have hardly any beaver tail there. You're going to get hammer bite. And I actually got hammer bite. They even replicated it on the old reproduction there. They went back and even shortened that beaver tail and corrected that, make sure it is exactly the way it would have been. And the trigger was longer back then, and they didn't put any scalloping on the frame as they did later, like that. And of course the ejection wall still remained high. It wasn't starting to be lowered until later as they started doing custom things to these things. Wouldn't you say it was around the 70s and they started doing competition and starting to alter a lot of these things?
Yeah, when a lot of the, what we call race guns come about where people started to modify them. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I think if you're going to compete, everybody should carry the same thing. Not necessarily the same pistol, but I think what you use on the range should probably be something that every average guy can afford and to run and shoot. So it kind of levels the playing field that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the guns from the time when they were doing that, one of the 1911s, was actually a Norinco, and you actually owned one.
That's what I originally had. My 1911 was a Norinco, and I shot it a lot. Loved the gun.
Yeah. Was it like kind of a configuration like this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. Like for me, although I have I think I have the only one that has all the upgrades to it. It's an ambi safety and high ride beaver tail and upgraded sights, and it's a Kimber Desert Warrior. I don't have it out on table, but reason is because I actually like the traditional look. I really do. There's something classic about it, especially watch movies like Gran Torino. Clint Eastwood,
absolutely.
He brought his back obviously from the Korean War, and it's just kind of neat that it's that guy that has that pickup truck, and that's what he has, and it's kind of that fitting
scary old dude.
Right.
Absolutely.
I bet if I opened up your glove compartment of your pickup truck, I'd find a 1911.
It's possible. It's possible.
Well, guys, I appreciate you coming and hanging out. We're just kind of chatting about it and bringing on the 1911s here, and wanted to just kind of bring them out and talked about them and everything. And everybody's been subscribing to the channel. It's been amazing, and that's really cool. The other thing I wanted to add before we get out of here was the cool thing about it was the grips and how they changed from World War I to World War II. They actually stopped furnishing them with beautiful walnut grips with the double diamonds on them and everything to a brown plastic molded grip
kind of thing.
Because I guess they figure this is something that that probably is not going to make it very much. The guy's not going to use it. Well, I mean, give or take.
We discussed that before. The question people always ask is, what's the best gun you use, or what's the best gun to buy, and what would be the best gun if you have to defend yourself? And the answer is always the same: the one that you shoot the most.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. So I mean, if a lot of people do choose the 1911, and if you do, definitely it's a good pistol. John Moses Browning definitely knew what he was doing, and it'd be amazing to see what John Browning would have to say, knowing that over 100 years his pistol's still here, still being produced, and still loved and carried and relied on.
Yeah.
So I think that's really
they say something being copied is the best form of flattery, and
right.
That's why there were so many pistols that have come out over the years that were basically modeled after this gun.
And the other neat thing I find about the World War II stuff is so many companies made the pistol itself. There was not just your Colts. There was Colt that made them. There was Singer Sewing Machine actually made 500 pistols and then stopped. They went on to make other things. The government only wanted. They said, "Oh no, I think it was because they were made with such precision." They said, "No, don't make any more of these," or something. I could be wrong about that, but something like that. There was Union Switch and Signal had made some.
Right.
Remington Rand, which is actually what we have here, which is not the Remington Firearms Company. It's the typewriter company. Exactly. So there's a lot of people that I remember there was a comment or two that said, "Oh yeah, back when Remington made a good gun." This has nothing to do with the Remington Firearms Company. This is a Remington typewriter company that made that. Of course, and then you got Ithaca, and there was other. It was kind of neat to see all these companies pitching in to make these things, even right down to the M130 carbine. You had jukebox companies making them. A division of General Motors was making them. I mean, General Motors made just about anything and everything.
You know, guns during desperate times for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
Their firearm sales is what saved the company.
Mm-hmm.
We were having a discussion about Ivers Johnson earlier,
Yeah.
which during the Depression they were basically in bad shape, and what saved them was producing an affordable firearm to the public for home protection and for personal protection. So,
Yeah. And the cool thing, the story about with this Inland, is they obviously, this is not the original Inland company, but they bought the name or acquired the rights to the name, and they're in Dayton, Ohio. And according to what they say, they're very close to the original factory where they were made. And they produced this in honor, and they said, well, if Inland had made them in World War II, they'd like to believe this is what it would look like. And I like it. It's a good pistol. I'm definitely happy with it. I spray painted it to appease myself.
certainly.
You know, and make a...
It's your gun. You
right.
do whatever you want to do with it.
That's right. That's right. I even spray painted the magazine to accommodate the one that they would have.
Absolutely.
Theirs seems a little bit darker and more...
I think you did an excellent job painting it.
Well, good. Thank you.
I was a little bit surprised when you told me you had, because it didn't look like somebody had painted the gun.
See, I could have even popped this on the
Pass it
channel
off.
and not even told anybody I painted it.
Right? Pass it off as the original.
Yeah, there you go.
But that would be wrong.
Yeah, right. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching the video, you guys. We're gonna get on out of here. Like, share, and subscribe, and leave the comments below. And in our good nature of Old Santee, we'll see you on down the trail.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. We did it to you.